The lights of wise, pious believers precede their words, and the effect of their words reaches as far as their lights can go. When I turned 18, my father asked me, "What is this thing you call service? Is this the kind of life you want to live?" A goal, an ideal, a dream, a call to duty, a call to service. Who is not spurred on by these hopes? Who is not drawn to ideas that take one's feet off the ground, to words that outline a purpose for our existence? Discovering such a cause is a watershed moment for a young person. They stare down many possibilities and paths. They either choose the path that appeals to their desires or the path that addresses the questions plaguing their hearts and minds. Is this the kind of life you want to live? Since the 1960s, this is a question thousands of young men and women in Turkey have faced. This is the story about a young man who made a choice that day. A choice countless others have made: to serve, to love, to converse. This is the story about the blissful path many have chosen to walk along, and the person who inspired them. The world rose from the ashes of a bloody war, only to fall into another, deadlier conflict. It was a time of conquering the planet. Nations did not just seek political and military advantages over one another. They sought dominance over nature itself. It was a tragic scene from history's recurring film. Warriors and emperors who once fought with swords and breastplates now went to war clad in the steel armor of giant tanks. They rode under the banner of different ideologies, but they served the same insatiable passion for power and greed, those desperate human weaknesses. They were driven by delusion, to prove human supremacy and power, to prove that we did not need a creator. One scientific invention followed another, but these were not undertaken for the sake of learning and discovery, but to satisfy a narcissistic hunger to acquire more territories. Fresh voices were needed to call people back to common sense, to remind us that our faculties were launching pads for loftier purposes, not to be wasted in the serpentine dungeons of the carnal soul, that the mysteries of the universe are there for us to discover. We needed voices powerfully soft and convincing. We needed voices to speak on behalf of our planet's soul and our human family. The world needed new definitions, transformative ideas, a refreshed mindset. It needed to be placed on an unwavering course. What is this thing you call service? Is this the kind of life you want to live? Home to the earliest civilizations, crossroads of great cultures, and a bridge where both halves of the world fuse together. From the remains of a once great empire rose a young republic, yet it faced a dilemma, whether to rise from the roots of its millennium-old past or to start anew on a blank canvas and obliterate that past completely. The latter path was chosen, And despite the promise of a new horizon, this choice precipitated decades of social conflict, military intervention, and political instability. Born into this traumatic and tumultuous country, Fethullah Gulen was raised by very pious and scholarly parents on the high plains of Erzurum in eastern Turkey. Erzurum is historically known for its devout local community and spectacular scholarship in religious studies, which enabled Gulen to learn from many respected teachers of the time. But Gulen was not content to only learn from local scholars. He read extensively and benefited just as much from leading global thinkers and historical philosophers as he did from the giants of Islamic thought. His oratory talent and extensive knowledge were noticed early in his youth. He was even asked to climb up to the pulpit when he was not tall enough to do so. A youth with passion and strength, and with a desire to move, he crisscrossed the country to deliver sermons as an official preacher. He felt the pulse of his nation as he traveled and developed his line of thinking, reconciling thousands of years of intellectual and spiritual heritage with modern-day conditions. Dialogue, he spoke at the lectern, between the secular and the religious, between science and faith, between East and West, was like bread and water for our survival. Reconciliation, he called from the pulpit, balancing a glorious history with the demands of the modern age was key to our prosperity. Democracy, he endorsed through TV screens, was a one-way road without return, yet that road was still evolving and being perfected. Universal human values, he wrote in his works, should be emphasized as meeting points among different cultures and nations. Education, he cried everywhere, and despite roadblocks, he persisted, encouraging philanthropists to build schools and to disseminate knowledge to illuminate hearts and minds. Give, he called to everyone, to help the poor and the hungry. Despite menacing opposition and criticism, Gulen took bold steps to eliminate bias and misconceptions when he met with world leaders and extended a peaceful hand to the other. Through the Journalists and Writers Foundation, he proved to the world that differing ideas can still gather around the same table. Similarly, in response to his call, schools have opened in over 140 countries worldwide. Students in these schools, from different ethnicities, religions, and cultures, have proved it's possible to unite in one classroom. Countless peace islands that formed around his ideas have served nations from the Pacific Rim to the Americas, from Siberia to Africa, protecting and harboring life in all its colors and diversity, spreading the exuberance of learning, dialogue, and love. What is this thing you call service? Is this the kind of life you want to live? Yes, Father. Then go with it. You have my support.